It's championship time. If you're lucky enough to be there, congratulations. If not, we're just sitting in misery. But that's why we got the Fantasy GOAT. We got all the details, everything you need to know as you try to hold up that championship trophy. The Fantasy GOAT starts right now.
This is the Fantasy GOAT, sponsored by Casablanca Resort and Casino, like Vegas used to be.
Welcome to the Fantasy GOAT. I'm Mike Davis. That's Jason Feinberg. Jason, congratulations to you. You're in 2 championships, right?
2 championships, and the semifinals were stressful because think about it. Those games dragged from Thursday all the way to Monday, and you had to wait in anticipation of whether your guys would get you there to the next game. And luckily for me, and some injuries for my opponent, I got there.
You got the Christmas gift. Me,
yeah.
I was 0 for 2 in both of my semifinal matchups, so no championship love for me.
A lot of teams I noticed that had the big record during this regular season must have had the same guys because those guys didn't come through when you needed it the most, and you fall into that category.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
We're going to be getting into a bunch of studs and duds in this livestock segment, but let's kick off with this. I mean, the big news right now, Denver, Russell Wilson is getting benched. A lot of this is dictated upon, this $37 million clause. They don't want him to get injured, so they're trying to help themselves out a little bit. He's still guaranteed, I think, about $39 million next season regardless. But it's funny, you brought up a really interesting point because he's getting benched for Jarrett Stidham. And tell us a little bit about that connection.
Yeah, well, remember, right here in Vegas, Derek Carr was benched for the same reason because they shipped him out and they brought in Jarrett Stidham. So Jarrett Stidham is now that's his gig. Is he plays cleanup and makes sure that franchise quarterback stays healthy. It sounds like Sean Payton wants to move on and get his guy. Because Russell did a pretty good job, but it's not his style.
Yeah, it's not his style. He's only had one 300-yard passing game, and that was the game they lost to Miami where they gave up like those 70 points. So he's been okay, but not tremendous. A 5-year, $242 million deal. It's not what you expected from him, especially with all the draft picks and everything they gave up. So interesting stuff in Denver. But let's move on to this. These studs and duds when it comes to the fantasy playoff semifinals and what propelled teams like you to get to that championship. So when we talk about the studs, I mean, listen, if you had Breece Hall, Puka Nacua, CeeDee Lamb, I mean, I love the
Amari
CeeDees.
Cooper.
I mean, we're going to get into Amari, but the CeeDees, the McCaffreys, the Amon-Ra St. Browns, those solid guys that you can rely upon week in, week out, that's what fantasy football is all about.
And I brought up our friend Terry, older lady who still uses a magazine. She's old school. She has on her team Lamb. She has, who else did you mention?
Kyren Williams. She has
Kyren Williams.
Yeah.
She has Amari Cooper, Breece Hall, and Josh Allen. She had 218 points in a fairly, I don't even think it's full point PPR.
Yeah, it's crazy. You want the boom but you also want those guys who aren't going to bust. And I think that was the big thing. The guy who's the stud of all studs, let's say now, you mentioned him, Amari Cooper, that's our hole-in-one player of the week. Amari Cooper, in our league, 46 fantasy points, 11 receptions, 265 yards, 2 TDs, a record in Cleveland. That connection he has with Audubon Joe Flacco is pretty incredible and, faces a tough test against Gangrene this week. But Amari Cooper, if you have him in the fantasy playoffs in the semifinals, that's the Christmas gift of all gifts.
What a renaissance for Flacco and Cooper. I mean, Cooper must be just, that is his Christmas gift, is Flacco coming back. But 1 week doesn't say everything, and it's going to be interesting. But my guy that, hindsight is always a killer in fantasy. So I have Puka in both leagues. I made it to the finals, but I only played him in one because of the week before.
Right.
It was a Cooper Cup game, and I was afraid if I put him in both leagues, what happens if it's a Cooper Cup game again? Well, it wasn't. So the league that I didn't play him in, I had to worry all week long because that was 35 points sitting on my bench.
Right. But you made it. You made it out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the duds, though, and I want to go first to our producer, James Edward Barrickman. the 4th. We're playing each other in our league for 3rd place. James, you and I both lost in the semifinals, but let's talk about one dud in particular. And I'm not talking milk duds, because we love those. We're talking about duds in a bad way. Tell us about this, James.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk about somebody who, if you made the fantasy playoffs, you're probably no longer in them, and that is Stefon Diggs. I'm going to put up an alert, like, for a missing person. Where is Stefon Diggs? Where's he been the last 6 games? Take a look at this. Since week 10, he is 3 receptions, 34 yards, 4 receptions, 27 yards, week 11, 6 receptions, 74 yards, touchdown. Week 12, 4 receptions, 24 yards. Week 14, week 15, 4 receptions, 48 yards. Week 16, 5 receptions, 26 yards. This is a guy that was a first-round pick.
Easily.
In a lot of leagues. And so since week 10, he's wide receiver 49.
Wow.
So, like, if he got you into a good position, he got you to the playoffs, I could almost guarantee you're not there anymore. And another person on that Buffalo offense I'm not going to let slide, Dalton Kincaid.
Yeah, what happened to him?
Who got real hot in the middle of the season, and then I don't know if it was Dawson Knox coming back or what, but now he is, over the last 5 weeks, tight end 34.
Yeah,
so
it's a killer.
The good news, though, is that the Bills have Gabe Davis. That's a joke, everybody, because most people had him on the bench because he hasn't even gotten a reception in 4 out of 6 games, and then he finally went off.
He's one of those guys who goes off and on all the time. But more duds that I just have to throw out there if you were in the semis. Purdy. I mean, pathetic. 2.4 points, the guy you were riding high. Pollard, Etienne, me personally, Trevor Lawrence and Kenny Walker. I mean, guys, you're riding them, and then they just don't perform in that week, and it's a killer.
Yeah, and then you have, what's worse, it's like a guy that plays from the beginning or a guy that has high hopes and gets injured in the game, like one Cortland Sutton. And others, too. Of course, Hawkinson went out. He's out for the season. These are guys that you were relying on, and it's like you can't do anything once they're in the game.
No.
At least before you have a chance to choose the right guy.
It's what makes it exciting. I mean, Dustin Hopkins, my kicker, got hurt in the game, in a semifinal, and he's out for the game. So it's just like there's things that just pile and pile and pile, and it snowballs.
On the other side of it, you may have lost in your fantasy playoff because Jason Sanders, the kicker, had 22 points or 23. So, I mean, that would be what a way to go there.
This is what it's all about, kids. It's fantasy football. It's crazy. It's amazing. It's a little bit of everything. Coming up after a short break, we're gearing you up for that championship. We got G.O.A.T Vision, QBs, RBs. You're going to want to hear what we got to say. Stick around.
Before we head to break, in Week 17 of 2004, which St. Louis quarterback threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win versus New York? He totaled 26.6 fantasy points and finished as the week's QB1. The answer after the break. Before we went to break, we asked you in Week 17 of 2004 which St. Louis quarterback threw for 450 yards and 3 touchdowns in a win versus New York. The answer, quarterback Mark Bulger, who played for St. Louis from 2002 to 2009.
Welcome back. All right, so G.O.A.T Vision time. Let's start with QB. So, Jason, here's who I'm feeling. Matt Stafford, he's going up against the G-Men. Over the last 5 games, 14 touchdown passes, only 1 interception. Had a nice week last week. Puka is coming up. I'm big on Puka and him breaking this rookie yardage record. So I like Stafford this week, and I think it's a good start. I'd be happy with him. The guy I'm not feeling, though, Mahomes. This guy, listen, he's still the best quarterback in the league, but in fantasy, take a look at this. Over the last 6 games, 16-20, 13-13, 15-16. It's not good enough for where Patrick Mahomes is getting drafted. Now, I know he's missed the left tackle, Donovan Smith, but this 2-time MVP doesn't look phenomenal. And the Bengals have a good, defense where they get to the quarterback, so I'm not feeling him this week. But I guess you play him, right?
Forget fantasy. In real football, it's not even fun to watch. It's painful.
Right. Do you play him if you're in the championship and you have him? I mean, you can't not play him, but at the same time,
if he got
the evidence doesn't look good.
If he got you there, then you might as well play him. I feel like it's going to pop. at any time.
Right.
But so far it hasn't. But yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, they couldn't wait. The network execs couldn't wait for Kelsey to catch a ball. It was such a boring game on offense. They couldn't wait so they can show Taylor Swift.
Right.
It's like, get it, punch button 2. Get Taylor.
Right,
before it was too late.
It's true.
So the way I'm handling all my pros and cons for all my positions is based on who I'm starting are my pros and who my opponents are starting are my duds. So Baker Mayfield for sure. I'm going to play him. I had a few other choices. Trevor Lawrence isn't looking good, so I am going to play Baker Mayfield. I also have Josh Allen. The guys I'm playing against, Dak Prescott, who's probably going to have a good game, and I'm hoping Tua doesn't have a good game because he is up against Baltimore, who gave San Francisco fits.
Yeah, I wouldn't be big on him this week.
Yeah.
But let's move over now to running backs. I mean, Zamir White, Las Vegas. This guy, I mean, had a huge game, 22 carries, 145 yards. It's even more impressive that, Kansas City knew they weren't going to be able to throw the ball, and he's still running all over them. So, I think a great game for him, second straight start. If he's in again with Jacobs out, I like him against Indianapolis. Now, the guy I got to, really give a hard time to, Tony Pollard. I mean, this guy has killed me in every league I have him. Season low 43 yards on the ground, hasn't scored in the last 3 games, and now he goes up against Detroit, who's giving the fewest points to opposing running backs in fantasy. So Pollard, I wouldn't actually play him. If I was in the championship, I would not play Tony
You would not
Pollard.
play him. Got it. So again, James Cook and Christian McCaffrey are my guys. And I'm going up against, of course, there are a few guys like Gibbs that I have in one league and I'm going up against in another. So hopefully he doesn't go off, but also isn't a dud. Kind of right in the middle.
Plays well, but not too well.
Right, exactly. But the guys I'm going up against that could cause problems, David Montgomery with Detroit and Devon Achane, who hasn't lately but can go off at any moment for Miami. So hoping those guys are duds.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right. We got wide receivers and tight ends after a short break.
Before we take a timeout, in Week 17 of 2014, this Indianapolis tight end had 5 receptions, 56 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a win versus Tennessee. He tallied 20.1 fantasy points and finished as the week's tight end 1. The answer after the break. Welcome back. Before the break, we asked you in Week 17 of 2014, which Indianapolis tight end had 5 receptions, 56 yards, and 2 touchdowns in a win versus Tennessee. The answer, tight end Coby Fleener, who played for Indianapolis from 2012 to 2015.
Welcome back. All right, so wide receivers now, Jason. So listen, Puka Nacua. Love this guy. He started off strong, and I'm banking on him to end and finish strong. 9 catches, 164 yards, a touchdown, 28 points last week. I love this guy. I think he's going to finish it off strong this year. He's going up against the G-men. Stafford's looking for him, and they got something to play for. So I'm big on Puka this week. The guy I'm not big on, Odell Beckham. Odell was a guy, he looked like he was coming on. Right now, though, it's just, he's nowhere to be found. Aguilar's getting in the end zone. He's going to Flowers a lot, Lamar. So, 2 catches on 13 yards. Last week, he had 1.9 points. So he just fell out of favor in this offense, and I don't think you can trust him.
You got to look out for aging players in the late part of the season, and he kind of falls into that category. So all season long, I've struggled with, in a good way, I've had 4 wide receivers, and I can only play 3 of them. Every single week, it's a struggle between 2 of them I have playing in the finals. I'm going to go with Chris Olave and Devontae Smith. The other 2 are Puka, playing him for sure in both leagues, and Cortland Sutton. This week is a little easier because Sutton is not, I wouldn't play him even if he was healthy. I just don't see the volume. I'm still a little nervous about Devontae Smith. I don't think he's getting the volume, but when he does get the ball, he does everything he possibly can with it. So hopefully he'll be okay. My opponents, T. Higgins and CeeDee Lamb. I'm a little more worried about Lamb than I am Higgins. However, Higgins falls into that Gabe Davis category where it's boom or bust.
But he's been playing well, especially with Chase out.
Yeah.
So, it's interesting. All right. Let's move on to tight ends. Chig Okonkwo. I mean, he's a major factor in this Tennessee offense. Season high in receptions last week with 6. Season high in yards with 63. Also got in the end zone with his first TD. He caught a pass from Derrick Henry. Wasn't even from Tannehill. So whether it's Levis, whether it's Tannehill, this guy is a factor in the offense. And he's going up against Houston, who actually gives up the 4th most points to tight end. So I actually like Chigakonkwo a lot this weekend. The guy I'm down on, I mean, I feel like we're saying it every week, Darren Waller.
Right.
You know, he could have had like 2 potential touchdowns in that Philadelphia game, but he just does not look good. I don't know. There's something off with what's going on. I don't know if it's the hamstring, it's a lingering injury, but he doesn't look like himself.
Well, I hope that's the case for one more week because he falls into my opponent has category. So Darren Waller and Dalton Schultz is who I'm up against. But my guys have been pretty consistent, and that's Evan Ingram and Jake Ferguson. Both guys have been pretty solid. I'd like to see Ferguson have a little more volume. They've been on the road the last couple games, so nobody's really been feeding the rock. But I think Ferguson in Dallas will be a better match.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Tight ends, it's always a tricky thing, especially once you're at this part in the season. But coming up after a short break, we got Dr. Nithin Natwa. If there was ever a time you need to know about injuries, it's championship time, baby. So we got Dr. Natwa joining us at Fantasy Docs after a short break. All right, welcome back. So now we're joined by, at Fantasy Docs, Dr. Nithin Natwa. We really need to know all the injury advice and insight as we go into the fantasy championship. So let's start here. I mean, TJ Hawkinson, this guy, the impact, we know he's out for the season, but this ACL, MCL, what does it look like for him just for his career and future overall?
He tore the ACL and also the MCL. Usually that's associated with at least some type of injury to the medial meniscus as well, too. It's called the unhappy triad. And the issue there is that it typically requires about a year-long recovery to return back to production, and the start of the season's only 9 months away.
Doc, we all saw what happened to Brock Purdy. Did not have a good game, was getting intercepted left and right, and then got a stinger and was taken out of the game. But he's pretty crucial for the championship week. What's it looking like for Brock Purdy?
I would be counting on him. A stinger is an interesting type of injury. Basically, it happens when your neck is just strained immediately to the side, and that shoulder gets wrenched down, and that stretches out the nerves that are in that region called the brachial plexus. It causes some numbness, tingling pain that shoots from your neck down your arm. Feels kind of scary at first, but typically people recover without issue within a couple of seconds to maybe a couple of days. The second time that happens in a season, they'll usually grab an MRI just to make sure there isn't any kind of significant damage.
All right, now Jamar Chase, a guy who is highly drafted in many leagues. Can we depend on him in the fantasy championship? Is this a guy who might play?
With these AC joint sprains, it seems like he had a more serious grade 1 with the fact that he's been out this long already. An AC joint sprain is usually just an inflammation of that connective tissue connecting the clavicle bone to the acromion bone. But when there's more serious grade 1, there's actually a partial visible tear. And if there's a grade 2, there's a complete tear. They're pretty non-specific on what he suffered. And it seems like all of the language is pretty negative to him returning this week.
Thank you so much, Dr. Natwa. Check out at Fantasy Docs on TikTok and Instagram. But now it's time for G.O.A.T.
Well, if your team has made it to the championship this weekend, you want to take all things into consideration. And one of those, the weather. So we have your Week 17 G.O.A.T. covering that. And all around, I got to tell you, not really looking at big weather impacts this weekend. Most games will be dry. We are tracking some scattered snow showers in the Chicago area for their game against Atlanta. And the coldest outdoor game this weekend is in Kansas City, Missouri. So we'll see some cool weather there. Here's what the map looks like for the early games on Sunday late morning and early afternoon. Not a whole lot going on in those early games, mainly focused along the East Coast and Florida, 60s and 50s. As we head up to the Northeast, temperatures mainly in the 40s. There's that cooler game for Chicago and Atlanta, 33 degrees. You can see some of that blue that it indicates some scattered snow showers moving through Chicago. But most of these games up and down the East Coast, the outdoor games, are looking mainly dry, and it could certainly be a lot colder this time of year. Now for the afternoon, early evening games, Seattle and Pittsburgh, some scattered showers around western Washington at 46. But we're looking cool but dry around Denver and Kansas City with those temperatures in the mid to low 30s. So that is your Week 17 G.O.A.T. Good luck if you're in the championship this weekend. Mike and Jason, we'll send it back to you.
All right, it's time for GOAT lineup. We got all the details on our last head-to-head matchup. That's after a short break. Well, welcome back, everybody. So, sad moment right now. You know, Jason, last year I won both of your leagues. These are the two trophies, leagues. Right?
Yeah, don't forget about the Manning Man Crush League.
One here. Right, but I wasn't in that league, so I wasn't there to win it. These are two of the trophies. I didn't make the championship.
You got to give it up.
I
am the commissioner, so I'll take them.
Sorry about
I'm
that.
I'm still in the running for the Dr. Feinberg. Dr. Feinberg is my cat.
Right.
For everybody that doesn't know me, and this is the closest I can find on Google about 12 years ago of a cat doctor. So this one I'm playing for.
It feels so wrong just not having it in my hands right now. I
know. This is the Glitz and Blitz League, which is based on a lot of fun, high heels, fashion, and pink.
I can't tell you how many pink beads I have scattered across my car and my apartment.
This one will probably be won most likely by Terry, the older lady we were talking about, who still uses a magazine but has a killer team. So we'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
I had a bad week against you. I went all Buffalo. Josh Allen, James Cook had a bad game, as we spoke about. Stephon Diggs had a poor game. Dawson Knox. So, not good stuff. I lost to you. Only 38 points from me.
So, I went with Mahomes, McCaffrey, T. Higgins, and Tucker Kraft. All of them did pretty good. Kraft got 8 points, but the rest had double digits. So, 69.3. This week, I'm taking a few chances. I'm going to go, I think we have the same quarterback.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going with Mason Rudolph from Pittsburgh. I haven't played Mostert yet with Miami, Ayuk with San Francisco, and Okonkwo, who you talked about with Tennessee.
Well, I like him. I'm just going, listen, it's over. So I'm going all Pittsburgh. Mason Rudolph, Najee Harris, Pickens, and Freiermuth. I have so many loved ones who are Pittsburgh people. So, James, that's for you.